So we've been receiving updates all morning from a few essential agencies, and my guest now is Delano Williams. He's Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at the National Water Commission. Morning, Delano. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Hi, Delia. Morning. Thanks for having me, and good morning to your viewers. I am trusting that most of us would have been spared any significant damage from the hurricane, and
Yes.
my condolences to the families that would have lost loved ones. I heard on the report earlier we may have lost 2 persons overnight.
Yes. And the devastation in central Jamaica is something else.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, so I'm going to go a little bit before the hurricane to
Right.
try to ascertain what's the process for the NWC in terms of preparedness before the hurricane gets here.
All right. So we were very conscious of the need for water supply. And so you would have heard, and what manifested itself was we literally tried to supply water to as many persons by our piped network as possible. And where it was necessary to also supply trucking. So even the regulations that we were forced to install in, for instance, Kingston, some other areas of the island, we relaxed those temporarily in order to get water to as many persons. This was continued right up to the onset of the hurricane itself, when those conditions would have started to impact the operations of systems. But other preparations, though, included the fueling of emergency vehicles, including our trucks, equipment, including our generators, were also fueled and stationed at strategic locations, and the filling of our tanks and, again, water trucks for distribution to customers following the passage of the system.
So what happens now, Delano? How do you assess the communities that will require that kind of assistance? How do you assess in terms of whether there was damage to your operating systems? What's the procedure from here?
Well, it's an immediate process for us, meaning our teams are already mobilizing. So our maintenance units will be working with other partner institutions such as the JPSCO, and our operations teams will be mobilizing as we get clearance from the ODPEM and the security forces to navigate to a number of the communities and facilities themselves that require restarting. So it is going to be, first and foremost, assessment of our pump stations, also our networks. We will commence repairs, rehabilitation of some of our facilities that were impacted, and then to get to the nearest restart. Obviously, critical institutions such as our healthcare centers, hospitals, police stations, and the shelters are all going to be at the top of our list for items to be restarted.
How do you ascertain the damage? Is it that NWC teams in each parish will go around and try to, do a risk assessment? If I'm in a community and I realize that there's something happening, can I be a part of that process and call in to say, hello, Water Commission, there's a pipe that's damaged? What do I do?
Absolutely. So with 12,000 kilometers of pipe, over 400 facilities, we are not going to see every inch of that pipeline. And so we will take definitely the input and the reports from every citizen who has an interest in water supply. Notwithstanding, our teams are, as I said, being dispatched. We have plumbing teams, several plumbing teams per parish. We also have what we call mobile operators and plant operators, and these persons go about the business of checking the infrastructure as we go along. So it is going to be an all-inclusive one. Our mobile app affords customers the opportunity to submit their reports, and they can go as far as to upload pictures so we can see exactly where we can take GPS locations of those pipes. Persons who are sharing on WhatsApp in some of the community groups that we operate also allow us to capture spots where there is either a disruption, meaning no water, or where there is a break in our pipeline, and we can respond as quickly as possible. But it is going to be guided, daily citizens, by the realities around us. We have roads that are impassable. We have some sections where our plants are situated. And just to give you the realities, we have over 400 systems, as I said. 2/3 of those are either rivers or springs, meaning over 250 of those. What that means is that there are sometimes in very low-lying areas, because that is where the water source is. And they would have been impacted by fallen trees, sometimes flooding still remains, mudslides, and so on. So the time frame will vary in us getting the report, but being able to access and rectify, move heavy equipment sometimes into those areas, or to safely operate, because if you have water in contact with the equipment, then you cannot introduce, for instance, electricity to restart the operations.
Right. I know that for the JPS, they were able to give us an estimate of 60%,
Yes.
maybe a little bit more right now, of persons in Jamaica who are without electricity. Are you able to give us an estimate in terms of how many people in Jamaica would be without access to water?
We were somewhere in that same ballpark area. As a matter of fact, we may, as at early this morning, well, last night we were bordering on 70, because there were some areas of the corporate area that did not have full service.
Yes.
Our Hope filter plant went down below 50% last night because of the level of turbidity that was coming from the river. But so I would say somewhere about 70% of our customer base is now affected. There are some major town areas that continue to receive service. Sections of St. Anne between Ochorea, Sport Maria, heading out to Landover, that area has water. Sections of the corporate area has water. And we are now working to restore critical areas like Falmouth, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, the Roaring River system continued to operate, but the Logwood system would have gone down overnight. So we are working assiduously to get those systems back online. And of course, along the southern coastline, Spanish Town would have been impacted somewhat there, because the Rio Cobra again was in spade, so we had to shut down. But we were serving on a reduced level through the storage systems that we have. And we have a number of storage systems that have been complementing and boosting the system to provide relief to customers. But once you get to Manchester, St. Elizabeth, there is, to a large extent, a lot of shutdown.
Yeah, you did reference at the start of the interview, Delano, some of the measures that you had put in place. I know there were areas in Kingston that there was a time frame when they would be able to access water, and then they wouldn't. I know in the Portmore area, there were some areas where the water pressure was a bit low. To the layman, we just had a lot of water. And their expectation is coming out of this. I don't want to hear anything from NWC about drought conditions. How do you respond to that and clarify that?
So water, to the extent that we got it yesterday, a lot of it was bypassing. Well, while it would be channeling into our intake sources, you're also looking at a lot of it that to the naked eye is really running in our drains on our roads. That's separate from the channels that send the water in. And while we could say harness it, you're looking at the possibility of contaminating your existing water treatment facilities, because the water coming through the gullies, coming on the road, is coming into contact with a lot more human disposed, and it poses a challenge. What I can say, though, is that if we continue to have the rains, we are likely to see an uptick in, for instance, the storage capacity at the Mona, at the Constant Spring. and in the Portmore zone.
Okay.
Right? I want to explain Portmore though. Portmore is served from a combination of wells, not so, and a section of Portmore coming via Phoenix. Integrator Portmore is served by the Spanish Town system, mostly to Phoenix. Now, why Portmore sometimes has disruption is because we are dependent on, we pump from wells, so it's not a river issue. But we are in an area where the power supply goes out, sometimes quite frequently. It is something that we have been working with the JPSCO, but just the natural environs. The area is situated with a lot of trees, and so even mild breeze sometimes disrupts. Now, when you have a power fluctuating even for, say, 30 seconds, your lights go out in your home, your fridge, your TV goes off, you'll notice that when it comes back, some equipment don't come back same time. The fridge generally has the surge protector doesn't work until the power balances out. It's a similar thing with the pumps that serve a section of Portmore, primarily Waterford, Southborough, Bridgeport, Portsmouth, and those areas. We have to sometimes go back to or to wait until the power balances out in order to restart the system. Otherwise, the pumps literally will burn out. And so even a 1 minute, as I said, disruption sometimes translates into several hours because of the process that it takes. We are committed to working to finding the best solutions. It's just an environmental factor where the area is very windy. We still have to depend substantially on power lines for the provision of supply. And there are also to some extent, security issues where if you have backup systems there, they are at risk. And we've been seeing how best to find a solution that ensures consistent and continued water supply.
All right, Delano, thank you so much for speaking with us. I mean, we're going to stay in touch so that we can keep the nation informed with what's happening with water supply. But thanks to you and your team.
Thank you too. Just a reminder, customers can check our website, also check our social media pages using the handle NWC Jam. We're available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, encouraging persons to download the mobile app to both submit your requests and also to get updates.
All right, Delano Williams, Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at the National Water Commission. Coming up next, 10 minutes to your health.